folks, David Stewart here. It's time to talk a little bit more about music theory. I know I'm behind a drum set. How are we going to do that with music theory? Well, this is part 4 in the series, and in the first 3 parts in the series, I've talked a lot about the vertical relationship between frequencies, between intervals and pitches. And it's time to talk a little bit about the horizontal part of music theory. So I said way back in the first video that what you experience as music is your neurology responding to various relationships between frequencies over time. So the over time part includes rhythm, it includes beat, it includes all the tension that happens and then is released. Chord progressions happen over time, as do melodies. So what is rhythm is a really, really good question to ask probably at this point. And what rhythm is the division of time into various units that are mathematically related themselves. So just like how our intervals are mathematically related, the units of time that we use are mathematically related as well. And what you should know before we begin is that you have more than 5 senses. I know this sounds weird to talk about, but you have more than 5 senses. So as you grew up, you probably learned you had like sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, and those are not your only senses. If you kind of dig into it, depending on who you're talking to, there may be anywhere from like 7 to like 11 senses, including, you have a sense of direction. You can tell which way's up because of the labyrinths in your ear. You also have a sense of time, believe it or not. And what a sense of time is the ability to sense time passing by, to sense time passing. And it's a weird thing to cue yourself into, but we do it all the time. When you're waiting around for something and it seems like you've been waiting a long time, you become keenly aware of the passage of time. And in music, what we do is we tend to divide that like river of time into different little units that another person can understand, and those units are going to be mathematically related. It all starts with a very simple idea, which is a beat. A beat is really just best defined as like a pulse in space. This is not a beat. That's a drum pattern. So the pulse, or the beat, same thing, is just a division of that passage of time into regular intervals. So we're taking time and we're dividing it into regular intervals. That's what that pulse is, and that's what that beat is. And when you hear a pattern, you're going to naturally be able to divide that all that stuff that happens. You're going to be able to put that and assemble that into this underlying pulse. Now that pulse and that division of time can be fast, or it can be slow. And with each one of those, you are making into that unit of time a smaller part of time or a larger part of time. So what we perceive to be fast are things that are small divisions of time, and things we perceive to be slow are longer divisions of time. So the beat is the basic unit with which you should understand time in music, and the organization of rhythm in particular. And not all music, by the way, has these strict organizations of rhythm, but most of the traditional Western music that you're going to hear, and most of the traditional Eastern music you're going to hear, does have these fairly strict divisions of time. So the beat is the basis for that, and you can think of that as like the main pulse. It's like the heartbeat of the music. And we can divide that beat up again into smaller intervals. So I'm going to give you a couple of terms. And the first one is duple. So if we have a beat occurring, duple is when we divide that beat into 2 smaller beats, 2 divisions of the beat. Duple is 2, do for 2, and then we can also do triple, right? So there's duple and triple, duple, triple. Triple divides it into 3, and as time is going on, any given beat that we have, we can divide it into sets of 2 or 3, depending on what we want for whatever music we happen to be doing. So you can divide it like within a single piece of music, right? Okay, duple and triple. Now you can also take those groupings of 2 or 3, and you can piece them together so that the underlying beat becomes irregular, or really it becomes that division. So the division becomes the part that's regular, and we tend to call that mixed meter. So there's duple time, dividing it into 2, And there's triple time, dividing into 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's mixed meter, which divides into 2s and 3s that are mixed. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And you could do this as a... That's what's called 5/8. It's a group of 3, triple, and a group of 2, kind of put back to back. And if you listen to like a lot of prog rock, like if you listen to Yes or you listen to Dream Theater or something like that, you're going to hear a lot of these 2s and 3s being lined up in different ways. You can do 7/8 pretty easy by doing a set of 3 and 2 sets of 2. Something like that, okay? And you can do 9/8. 8/8's really common if you're playing rumba. Let me think of 8/8. 1, 2, 3. Something like that. So you can create lots of these different little divisions of the beat, however you want it to happen. So that means that if the beat is dividing into duple or triple as we're hearing it, we may hear a change from a duple to a triple. But if we're hearing triples and duples with the underlying division of the beat staying the same, that's mixed meter. We can also have a thing called polyrhythm. Polyrhythm is where you have, say, a 2 and a 3 happening at the same time. I'm playing 3 with this, I'm playing with this. And that's called polyrhythm, where you're having multiple divisions of the beat going on at once. Now I mentioned duple or triple. What about 5, 6, 7s? Well, if you think of a 6 is really just 2 3s or 3 2s. And in flamenco, we tend to think in 6s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you tend to think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Tend to hear that 3s and 2s. So everything can basically be broken down into 3s and 2s. 7 is a 3 and 2 2s. So when you're seeing divisions like, oh, it's a 5 uplet, it's a division of the beat into 5, you can really just think of it as a triple and a duple stuck together at a pretty small division. So almost everything can be just done all the way down into 2s or 3s. 2s or 3s are pretty much the smallest grouping that we can think of. And that's at the beat and the division level. The next step up from that is called the measure. And that's where we're organizing time into a little bit larger group. Most common is called common time, obviously, and that's 4/4. That's where we're grouping 4 beats together into a measure. That'd be one measure of a standard rock backbeat in 4/4. 1, 2, 3. So on each one of those beats, we have something different happening. We have a division here. We have a 1. We have a 2. We have a 3. We have a 4. And we can even do something with more variation. Whatever it's going to be. So that's called a measure, and measures can be any groupings of duples or triples that you want for a particular given piece of music. 4/4 is the most common. 3/4 also works. 1, 2, 3. 3/4 is also very common. 6/8, which is 2 groups of 3. 1, 2, 3. However you want to do that. An interesting thing before I move on past measures is swing. So anybody in here that's interested in swing? Right? Swing is where we're dividing the beat unevenly into a long and a short. But what it really is, most often it's thought of as a 3, where we're tying the first 2 of that 3 together. And we're just doing... So we're just sort of sticking 2 of the 3 together and having the third one hang off. That's swing the way most people think of it. Other people are going to have different opinions, obviously, but that's a really good place to start with swing. Now, so above the measure, you have another bigger grouping of time called the phrase. And the phrase is where you take several measures and you stick them together, and they make a complete or coherent musical idea. That's a phrase. Phrases can be used to do all sorts of things, but usually they're assembled into an even bigger part of the music called a period. So you have beats, which are divided into duple or triple, or subdivided even. You can even go into infinite divisions on either side of the beat. Beats are grouped into measures. Measures are grouped into phrases. Phrases are grouped into periods. Periods are grouped into pieces. The most common grouping for a phrase is 4 measures. And if you spend any time listening to something like electronic dance music, what you're going to hear a lot of is what I call the law of 4. Every 4 measures of 4 beats, so every 16 beats, something will change in an EDM piece. And you can turn one on and just start counting and see how long it takes for each new musical element to be introduced. It'll be introduced either every measure, every 4 beats, every 4 measures, which is most common, or maybe every 2 measures. In some cases, you may have like a 2-measure thing, something happen every 8 beats. And that's the way that you're usually going to hear grouping. So we go back to that 4/4 rock backbeat. If I want to create a phrasing as a drum set player with that 4/4 rock backbeat, I'm going to create something different that's going to mark that complete musical idea. Here's some phrase. Whatever it's going to be. So you do something that's a little bit different, and then you hear those phrases happen. If you go and you listen to some rock music or listen really to any music that features drum set, that's what you're going to hear in terms of phrasing. Is that when you get to that 4 measure mark, you're going to hear something change. And that's really how we group pieces together. We take several phrases and we stick those together if they're different or the same or they contrast in different ways. And we'll get into deeper analysis of form as we go. That creates a period. And as we put several periods together, we can actually create an entire piece of music. Maybe you put a couple pieces of music together and you get like a symphony or like an album or something like that, a larger grouping of musical ideas. And the reason we group them like this is that we're grouping them by divisions of time, or rather than by their vertical relationships of chords and pitches and things like that. And that's how we perceive music. We perceive it happening through time. So the divisions of time passing by us become pretty important. Why don't I close this particular video out by playing on the drum set just a really simple piece. I'm going to improvise a piece, and what I'm going to improvise is basically just a 2-period or a 3-period piece. So I'll have or just a 1-period piece. I'll have 3 phrases of 4/4, and we'll sort of assemble them into 2 different sections that sound different, and then repeat the first section again to kind of make a nice little ABA piece. And you should be able to hear the division here, the beat, the phrase, whatever little fill I do to do the phrase. I don't know what I'll do before I do it. And then you'll hear things change and go back to assemble everything into a piece. Here we go. Second phrase. Have a little piece. So we did the first phrase twice, did a little bit different phrase, and then I did another phrase at the end. And sorry for the mistakes. I'm not really a drum set player, by the way. It's just something that I thought would be fun for you guys to explore rhythm with. That's probably going to be it for today for this particular lesson. And we'll take that and we're going to apply those divisions of time. And I'll show you all the notation elements for time, by the way. But it's best to hear first, then see in my experience. So we'll go and we'll see what they look like, see what a whole note looks like and what a quarter note looks like, and we'll talk about that and how we notate that division of time, and then eventually we'll get to writing melodies, chords, and those sorts of things. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see in here in the future. Usually happy to deliver if I have an opportunity to do so. And don't forget to check out my websites, dvspress.com, davidbstewart.com, and I will see you next time.